Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Motivational Monday talk. My name is Mark Krebs. I am a member and a team leader of Team Sunset, which is part of Team Empire, Team Rising Tide. Welcome to today's Motivational Monday chat about focusing on the outcome and not the obstacles. This topic has a really special place in my heart because I have faced a lot of obstacles since I have been with Archer and Evolution. A little bit about myself. I live in Vermillion, South Dakota. I've been with Archer and Evolution for just about 23 months now. So I'm coming up on my 2-year Evoversary in April. But I've been a travel agent for just under 10 years now. So I've been doing this for a very long time. And throughout that time, life has not been without its fair share of challenges in this business. I fired my boss about 5 years ago and took the plunge to do this full time about that time. I was working full time for another company. I was working for a hotel chain for about 4.5 of those years and doing this full time as well during that time. And I finally got fed up with punching a time clock. And so I finally said, hey, it's my time to build my travel business. I was working for another host agency at the time. I hadn't found Archer at that time yet, but life kept throwing challenges at me. And I knew it was time to focus on my family, focus on myself, and build a business for myself. And with that, I knew there were going to be obstacles and challenges in my way. Okay. And what this talk is about is how to overcome those challenges and how to focus on the outcome, the overall outcome at the end of the day, and not completely focus on the obstacles and let that derail all of your progress. So again, I've been doing this for about 10 years now, again, with Archer for 22 months, just about 23 months on the 5th of next month. So during that time, it has been with its ups and downs. I will admit, when I first started with Archer and Evolution, I was focused on the travel booking part of it. I hadn't even considered getting into the team building part of it until July of 2022. I got onto a roll with that. I had built myself a nice team of 25 agents at that time. So I was doing really well as a mentor, and I absolutely love mentoring my agents. I love being able to work with them, helping them succeed, watching them succeed, and helping them become the best travel agents they possibly can be, and the best mentors. I have some amazing mentors on my team as well. And that in itself can pose some obstacles as well, because you never know on a day-to-day basis what kind of questions you're going to be thrown at you. For example, I might have days when I go without a mentorship question, and it's all travel booking questions from Team Sunset or Team Empire in the team chats that I'm a part of, or it could be all mentorship questions, or it could be a mix of both. So I've learned to think on my feet. I've lost sleep. There are times that I've stayed up all night working on quotes for clients, but that's just part of the business that we're in. When you promise a client something, you fulfill that promise. So that is something that you have to be noteworthy of, and you have to be known for, is fulfilling those promises within a timely fashion for not only your clients, but your agents as well. Well, all of that changed on August 7th of 2022, when life's greatest challenge hit me. My wife and I were married on that day back in 2016. So we had started out by celebrating our anniversary the night before with a nice dinner and whatnot. and we were just going to spend the day relaxing and enjoying each other's company and having fun with each other the next day. Well, little did we know, it was a weekend, so it was a Sunday. So we decided to celebrate on a Saturday. We went out to a nice dinner, had some fun, and just had a good time. Later on that evening, I started getting really sick. Thinking it was something that I had eaten, I just pushed it off to the side of my mind. And I said to myself, I'll get over this. It's no problem. It's just some gastritis, something like that. Well, it turns out it was more than that. I wasn't getting any better by morning. So about 10 o'clock the next morning, we ended up going to my local emergency department here in Vermilion, where they ran all the tests that they needed to. I had a CT scan, I had an abdominal x-ray, and they had first diagnosed me with a small bowel obstruction. Well, little did we know that it was actually going to be worse than that. Later on in the day, like a couple of hours later, my condition worsened. It went from stable to critical in a matter of minutes. My blood pressure dropped to the point that I was in hypovolemic shock, which is a lack of fluid getting through my body. My blood pressure was 50/0. So they had to pump me full of fluid very quickly and basically resuscitate me with different medications. The decision was then made to send me to Sioux Falls, which is about an hour north of us, to the major trauma center and the major medical center for our area. So they first, and this all, like I said, this all happened within a matter of minutes. My condition deteriorated that rapidly. When my ER doctors were on the phone with the telemed emergency transfer department at Sanford Hospital in Sioux Falls, my blood pressure just tanked. So they revived me, they resuscitated me. They took care of me right there. Once they got me stabilized, they got back on the horn and they tried to request an air transport because my condition was that critical. No go for either a helicopter or an airplane due to weather. So, and by this time, according to what my wife has told me, the doctors at the hospital here in Vermilion have told me, and the nurses here who I've interacted with multiple times since then, I was in a coma. I was in a state of shock, much to the point that I was in a coma. So I don't remember any of this. I get all of this information from my medical records, from talking to the doctors, nurses, my wife. So they had to wait 2 hours, 2.5 hours for a ground transport ambulance to get me to Sioux Falls. My condition was so grave that they sent a nurse with me in case they had to push different medication, which thankfully they did not have to. During that ride up there, I was stable. But when I got to the ER in Sioux Falls, my condition worsened even further. I actually went into respiratory arrest. So they had to start breathing for me with a ventilator in the ER. They put me into a medically induced coma, repeated the scans, and found that I had a large duodenal ulcer that was bleeding uncontrolled in my belly. And that required emergency surgery. So by this time, nearly 8 hours has passed since the time I had gotten to the ER in Vermilion to the time I was on the operating table. My wife didn't know if I was going to live or die. My family didn't know if I was going to live or die at that point. Doctors worked for 4.5 hours to save my life, to stop the bleeding, to put me back together. and to keep me in a medically induced comatose state using medications, keep me on a ventilator, keep my normal body functions going while my body had to heal. I went septic from this ulcer. I was on numerous different antibiotics at the time. They had me on a chilling pad to try to bring down 104 fever for 3 straight days. I'm going to show a couple of pictures now of the state that I was in on August 8th of 2022. And I don't mean for these pictures to scare you guys. I want to show you guys the state that I was actually in. This is me in the surgical intensive care unit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 IV pumps running, a ventilator, all sorts of drains, compression devices, everything hooked up to me. You can see I barely had my eyes open, but I was not with it. My wife said, I tried to text, I tried to talk, but I got so frustrated that I couldn't do it. That I basically threw my phone, or her phone, actually. I tried to write when they tried to bring me out of sedation. I was not able to, because I was trying to communicate with her to let her know that I was going to be okay. But they kept me in this comatose state for 7 days in the surgical intensive care unit. Day 7 came around. All I remembered from that time was smelling apples the day I came out of my coma. I don't even remember pulling my breathing tube out myself, even though they were going to do it a little later on that day. I did it for them because they didn't have my hands and arms restrained like they had in the past. They had weaned me down off my sedation, and apparently something in my brain was working, saying, get this ventilator out of me and off of me. And it got to a point where I just pulled my own breathing tube out. I spent an additional 3 days in the surgical intensive care unit, and then I got transferred to the surgical cardiovascular unit for another month. So this is nearly a month and a half that I've been in the hospital, recovering from this major surgery that I had that saved my life. I was so weak, I couldn't do anything but lay in my bed. I couldn't think about work. I couldn't focus on work. I couldn't focus on anything but sleeping, eating a little bit, and trying to live the best way that I could by getting through these tough times. Finally, about a month and a half later, I got transferred to a rehab facility within the same hospital, just run by a different specialty hospital. And it was 2 weeks later that I finally told my wife to bring up my laptop, because I was finally feeling strong enough to get up and work, or try to work. It was during those first 2 weeks that I was wondering to myself, did my team think I abandoned them? What did the other team leaders from Team Empire think had happened to me? Even though I texted them and in the chats occasionally and said, I'm doing okay, I'm still here, but I'm just not strong enough to work. They took the lead and they looked out for my team for me. But it was finally not until 2 weeks later, after I lost nearly all of my team members, that I was finally feeling well enough to work, and numerous clients, because I woke up to a missed 50 emails from clients looking to book trips, and I lost out on all of them. So that was an obstacle. Finally, on October 10th, I was discharged from the hospital for the first time. I had what's called a wound manager bag that I had to wear for the next 6 months, up to March 16th, when I was going to have a revision surgery to fix all the complications that occurred while I was in the hospital. And there were several. But again, another obstacle in my face that I had to focus on getting through and past to continue my recovery. And I did. So 6 months, I regained my strength. I started working my business again. I started working my team building again. March 16th rolls around. I'm being prepped for another major surgery. I know I'm going to spend a couple more days in the hospital after this. No problem. I trust the surgeon who was doing the surgery because he was the one who saved my life. He goes in, fixes everything that needs to be fixed. Great. March 18th, I get out of the hospital. March 21st rolls around. I call his office. I say, Dr. Tarahi, look, I've got problems here around the incision. He says, come into the office today. We'll take a look. Mark, you need to go back into the hospital for the next 4 or 5 days. Okay, no problem. Because they needed to monitor me and figure out what to do with the new complications that had set in. So another setback. Get out of the hospital 5 days later. Another 3 or 4 days goes by. I go in for my post-op check. More complications have set in. Back into the hospital for another week. I'm repeating this cycle until April 10th, when finally I go back in for a third time to his office with a lot more complications coming from the incision, which never fully healed and just split wide back open. And he's like, you're going to be admitted indefinitely. I'm like, great. Anticipating that it was going to be something like that, I had brought all my work stuff with me. I had a mobile office with me this time. So I had my computer. I had my printer with me. I had business cards with me. I had my client files with me. I had everything with me that I needed to, so that I would be able to work. Because I was feeling great. Despite this little mental setback, physically, I was feeling okay. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me this time. April 10th to June 18th, I go through 5 more surgeries. 4 of them moderately complicated procedures, 1 of them another major procedure. But it was during that time, when those obstacles were put up into my way, I just knocked them aside and said, I'm not letting this happen again. I'm going to keep pushing forward. Those of you who have been around Team Empire for a while know this story and know that I was doing trainings from my hospital room. My nurses knew that when I had a do not disturb training in progress sign up, they better not come into my room unless it was life or death or it was time for a pain medication. Or they needed to change out an antibiotic that was saving my life at the time. Obstacles are just temporary situations that life puts in front of us that we need to push through. Focusing on the outcome of getting through those obstacles is what is the most important thing that you can do. If a client says no, go back to that client and say, well, what could I have done better for you? Or what can I do better for you to make this sale? Or to have you complete this booking with me? What do you need from me, Mr. or Mrs. Client? Did I miss something that you were looking for? Because I can certainly go and look in it and add it. We're in a people business. We have to get to know our clients, just like we have to get to know ourselves. Mike Archer's mom and dad, Cliff and Lola Archer, have a saying: we don't do business with people we don't know. And that is very, very true. It's not just the clients that we don't know. We get to know them, but you have to get to know yourself first. And you have to get to know what tenacity you have, what you can push through in life, what you can push through in your professional and your personal lives, and what you need to do to be able to succeed. I'm always reminded of a quote by the great Jim Valvano of the North Carolina State Wolfpack, who sadly passed away from cancer several years ago. And that quote is, don't give up, don't ever give up. And that is something that I live by. During that second long-term stay in the hospital, for those 2.5 months, from April 10th, really from March 16th until June 18th. So those 3 months, those 2.5 months I was in the hospital, I was pushing my business. I went to the hospital with 100 business cards. I came home with less than 20. I was handing them out to everybody. I gained more than 75 new clients during that time that I was staying there. I booked several trips for staff members, nurses, techs. I provided quotes for several more that I'm following up on now because they were looking at going later this year. Life threw a big obstacle at me, and I knocked it out of the way. And I said, forget this. I'm going to push right through it, and I'm going to keep on working my business. I'm not telling you to go to the hospital and do what I did. If you are sick and you need to be there, then by all means, let yourself get better. But do what you have to do in order to focus on yourself and to focus on the outcome and not the obstacles that you face. And don't let those obstacles run your life. Too many times I hear of agents saying, well, I can't do this, this, and this because of this, this, and this being in my way. No. I tell them, push that away. push that mentality away. Go after what you want, and you will achieve greatness. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. I am going to open it up for questions here in just a minute, but I do want to thank you all for being here for this Motivational Monday speech and this talk. I hope you guys were able to learn something and take something away from it today. If you have any questions, I will put my contact information into the description of the video so that you guys can reach out to me either by phone, text, email, or Facebook Messenger. So thank you all very much for being here.